Hello once again, and welcome to the first video of 2022, and the first real video I've made in like a month and a half. Yeah, it's been really hard to find the motivation to make videos lately, even though I have so much cool stuff that I want to show you guys. Just the act of getting out the camera and getting things ready and stuff like that. It's been hard lately with everything going on, and just it's a challenge just to fulfill my basic life duties right now, so please be patient. But I'm doing one today, and this video is going to be a little different because it's going to be a video basically overviewing the current state of my computer setup, but also it's going to introduce two new things that I have gotten that are now a part of my current computer setup. These two new things are things that I would have normally made their own separate videos of, but because they're already integrated into the computer setup and I really just don't have the energy to pull them back out and do my usual making, a video of them separately, I'm going to introduce them as part of this video today. So not how I normally like to do things, but with it being hard to make new videos lately, it's a way to show you guys some new stuff. So we're gonna do that. So this is the current state of my computer setup. PC hasn't changed. This now 12-year-old custom built computer, which was built by a company called Capital Networks in Ontario for the TV station. The TV station retired it a few years ago and it was given to me. Asus P60 motherboard, Hexacore Xeon CPU, 24 gigs of RAM, 120 gig SSD, a floppy drive that likes to randomly seek for no reason, and a 1 terabyte RAID array that I call Greg, which has two Western Digital Velociraptor 1 terabyte drives that were given to me by 93 Shadow. Oh, and the piece de resistance, a Radeon R9 390X graphics card, which was also given to me by 93 Shadow. I still have the new motherboard to put in this computer. I still want to put that motherboard in this computer. I just do not have the energy to get around to it. So that motherboard is still in its box, but I do want to do it because that motherboard is far newer. It's going to be even faster, but also because once in a while I get a really bizarre blue screen of death, which references an error that when I look it up, basically either means a hardware failure or a driver failure. Neither of which are surprising given that this computer is 12 years old and I'm running Windows 10 on it, which probably doesn't like any of the hardware in this computer. This computer would have originally run Windows 7. So I do want to get that new motherboard in there, and when I can finally get around to doing that, we will make a video of that process. Moving on here, still using the same monitors that I've been using for the past year and a half, 2 years. My main monitor is this beautiful Samsung 21-inch 1600 by 1200 monitor. And I think normal people would probably roll their eyes at the fact that I'm using a 16 or 17-year-old 4x3 monitor, but I love this thing. This monitor is amazing. Tons of screen real estate. Because it's not widescreen, it doesn't use a whole lot of physical real estate because horizontal space is kind of at a premium in this setup. But it's great. I mean, I love the 4x3 form factor. For stuff like reading articles or even social media websites, of course, most social media websites now are formatted to for use on a smartphone, so something with a vertical screen. So even when you go to the websites on a PC, they're not very wide, and they're just designed for a taller screen. So stuff like Twitter and Facebook actually work really well on a 4x3 monitor, but just in general, it's really great for reading stuff. And of course, a lot of the arcade games I play, they're vertical games, of course, and so a 4x3 monitor works well for that. So yeah, really love this monitor. I would not change a thing. I love this just the way it is. And then my second monitor, also an old 4x3 monitor, it's this 17-inch 1280 by 1024 HP with the built-in speakers. And I am not using the built-in speakers on this monitor anymore, and that's thanks to one of the new parts of this computer setup, which we will get to in a few moments. As for other peripherals, still using my IBM Model M keyboard. I love this thing. I love this keyboard. I would never want to have anything else in its place. I can't help but be a little worried. I've heard a couple of times before from some people who are slightly older than me that they had a keyboard like this and had to stop using it because the relatively heavy force needed to press the keys became a bit hard on the joints in their hands. And I hope I don't get to that point, although if I ever do, I guess there's probably a really nice mechanical keyboard with a lighter key press that would suit me well. But yeah, I love this thing. The only thing I wish it had was Windows keys. Just because, especially with the second computer in this setup, which we will get to later in this video, the Windows keys would be really useful to have. And even on the PC side, I have to do some gymnastics, like mapping stuff to the scroll lock key. Like I have the start menu mapped to the scroll lock key. So it's a bit of a weird, you know, I've had to do a little bit of customization to use this keyboard in the modern world, but it works just fine. I love typing on it, and I think it's a permanent part of this setup as long as it keeps working. And then the mouse, same old Microsoft USB optical mouse from the early 2000s. I have two of these, and recently I had to switch the other one out for this one because it had an issue where the mouse would suddenly stop working and Windows would start continuously making the USB connect and USB disconnect sounds over and over and over. And you'd look at the mouse and the LED would be flickering, so the mouse was like connecting and disconnecting for some reason. And I originally assumed that it was an issue with this computer, like maybe the USB rail was shorting out or something like that. Because I switched that mouse out for this one, and I'm still getting the same issue once in a while. But I recently found that even on the second computer in this setup, the mouse sometimes just gives up and you have to unplug it and plug it back in to make it work again. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe both of these mice are just like dying of some sort of weird electronic issue. If it starts happening more often, this mouse, it's happening way less often than it was with the other one. But if it starts happening more often with this mouse, I have a Logitech USB optical mouse that I will switch to. A mouse that I've actually had most of my life. It came with the first brand new computer I ever had, the 2004 custom built computer. Still got the mouse and keyboard for that. Actually, once in a while I consider switching this out for a wireless mouse, just because it's a little difficult sometimes to like maneuver around with this cord, because I have the cord snaked up there and stuff like that. I've actually got a mid-2000s Logitech wireless mouse that has a great big huge receiver that you plug into USB, and the receiver's on a cord and the receiver has to have like line of sight or almost line of sight communication. But last time I used it, which was several years ago, it actually worked well, so I may actually switch this mouse out for that wireless mouse someday. Next, still got my very 90s power center surge protector thing. Wish I had two of them because it's all full. And I also have that surge protector up there, which is almost full. I have way too many things plugged in. But there's that. And then to the right of all the computer stuff, I know it's been a long time since I did a live stream of transferring some of the videotapes from the TV station. I've kind of just taken a step back from that, like I have from a lot of things right now. But the VCRs are still here. I got the Sony U-matic machine right here. And then below it is something I need to make a video of, the UVW-1800 Betacam SP recorder came home with me a few months back. I traded the PVW-2600 Betacam SP player that was at the station for this one, so that machine now lives where this one once lived, at the station, and that machine is still working just fine. And now I have this one. The reason I switched it out for this one is because this has a time-based corrector, which the PVW-2600 doesn't, so that's obviously going to be better for transferring the Betacam tapes. But I incorrectly thought that if I ran the output of the U-matic into the input of this, and then the output of this into my digitization device, that this would apply the time-based correction to the U-matic, but it doesn't do that. But that's okay. But it's really cool to have this. It's certainly a much smaller and lighter machine. But also I can have some fun with it because it records. And I've actually been graciously given several Betacam SP tapes that didn't have anything on them worth transferring. They were just given to me by the station manager. So I have some tapes that I can use to play around with this thing someday. But there will be a video of this VCR someday. It's really neat, and I think it'd be really great to make a video of it, do a recording test with the camcorder hooked up to it, stuff like that. So that's something else that I need to make a video of someday. Now, on to one of the new components in this computer setup. I mentioned earlier how I don't use the built-in speakers on my second monitor anymore. And that's because I was graciously given this. This is the Optimus SA-155 stereo amplifier that Ava gave me. And I now use this as part of the computer setup. And I freaking love it. I am so grateful to Ava for giving me this. It has really, really enhanced the computer setup. And I use it every day. If you haven't noticed already, right here, and right here are the realistic Minimus 7 speakers that I featured in a prior video. This one's got the new woofer installed in it because the original went bad. And yeah, I have both computers in this setup hooked up to this thing. And it outputs through these speakers, and it is just awesome. It is so wonderful. I had no idea how terrible the speakers on this monitor were until I got this and integrated it into the system. Well, obviously this was gonna, sound a lot better because these are much larger speakers and that's a much larger amplifier compared to whatever's in that monitor and stuff like that. But also, I used to think that this computer just had really bad sound hardware because it had such a high noise floor and there was a lot of interference. Like whenever you moved the mouse or pressed a key on the keyboard, you'd get a little quiet bleeping sound through the speakers. And I thought that was just the sound card in this computer, but it turns out it's actually this monitor and the amplifier that's built into it. It's just a really terrible amplifier that picks up a ton of interference. I was blown away when I listened to the computer through this amp and these speakers at how good it sounded. This is just excellent. And it's got a really cool feature. Well, it's got a lot of cool features, but one of them I find especially useful. You know the old YouTube trope, my left ear enjoyed this video? When, for some reason, and it still occurs even today, some people upload videos where it's only the left channel audio. And I have no idea how people are even managing that to happen. Smartphones don't do that. Cameras don't have that. This camcorder does it, because I've only got one mic hooked up to it, but I know how to fix that in editing for you guys. But somehow people still, to this day, there are still videos being uploaded on YouTube that only have one channel of audio. Well, with this thing, that's not an issue anymore because it's got a mono button. You hit that button and it mixes the two channels together and just outputs both of them through both output channels. And you don't have the left ear problem anymore. It is so excellent. It's wonderful. One of the best features on this thing for being used with a computer in the age of YouTube. Really, really excellent. And this amplifier's got a lot of other useful features too. You got your tone and balance controls. It's got 3 inputs on it, 2 line inputs, which are labeled tuner and CD/tape. But it's also got a phono input, and there's a switch on the back to choose between magnetic and ceramic cartridge. That's really useful. The realistic stereo amplifier on my stereo system, which I need to make a video of someday, even that doesn't have a switch between magnetic or ceramic phono cartridges. What a really nice feature that Radio Shack put on this thing. And then you got your volume control. And yeah, it's a really nice amplifier. The design of this amplifier actually goes back to the 70s. I think it started with the realistic SA-100 was the first amplifier of this style. And then the next model in the 80s was the SA-150. And then the SA-155 is exactly the same as the SA-150, except they replaced the metal faceplate with this black plastic one, basically updated the styling for the 90s. I don't know when this one was made. Either I don't know or I don't remember, but there should be a sticker on it. But it's sometime in the 90s, probably early or mid-90s when this was made. And of course I was too lazy to pull out the amplifier and make its own video like I would have normally done. So here's someone else's photo of what's on the back. You get your 3 inputs, 2 line inputs, and your phono input. There's your phono selection switch. You get a line output in addition to the speaker output, so whatever input you've selected, it comes out the speakers, but then a line level version of it also comes out this output. So theoretically, I could have like a cassette recorder as part of this computer setup, and anything I wanted to record onto cassette, I could just record it, which is actually really cool. And yeah, particle board case, that's about it. Now, if you notice this white cable right here, there's a 3.5mm jack labeled CD and tape. That's actually paralleled with the RCA CD tape input on the back. You just plug into one or the other and then change the input to CD tape. The second computer is going into this input right now. I'm using the front input instead of the rear input just because I need to get another 3.5mm to RCA adapter. But eventually that'll be moved to the back and then this will look a bit cleaner. But yeah, this is amazing. I actually mostly use it with headphones plugged into the headphone jack, and the volume control still works with headphones, and it works amazing for that. Now it's kind of funny, if you look at the specifications for this amplifier, it has a rated output of, are you ready, 1.5 watts per channel, which to most people probably sounds like nothing, but actually it's friggin' plenty. This thing will belt out when you crank the volume up. It would absolutely get loud enough to annoy my neighbors, and it would sound good while doing it. This is a really excellent amplifier. It sounds great, and it will get loud when you want it to. Funny enough, the actual amplification in this is done by a single integrated circuit. And if you look up the data sheet for that IC, the IC itself has a rated output of 6 watts per channel. But Radio Shack actually only rated this 1.5 watts per channel. So I don't know if Radio Shack rated it more conservatively, like for a better total harmonic distortion value, or if Radio Shack perhaps designed the outboard circuitry around that IC to specifically limit it to that output. I don't know, but Radio Shack rates at 1.5 watts per channel. and it sounds good. It's actually a really good match to these Minimus 7 speakers. It sounds wonderful, and it gets plenty loud enough, especially when you're just sitting here at the desk. Now there's one sort of Achilles heel that this amplifier has, and that it has a permanent built-in loudness equalization built into it. And I guess Radio Shack did this to sort of offset the fact that it's just not very powerful. But what a loudness equalization means is that if your volume is turned down low, it basically adds bass to it. And so it's a little bass heavy when the volume's low. And then when you crank the volume up, that extra bass sort of fades off into a normal level of bass. And then you get sort of a normal equalization. And that sort of works against this thing's sound quality. It really didn't need it. You can especially hear it when you're wearing headphones. The bass is actually a little overpowering if you're on low volume wearing headphones. But there's a fix for that. What I do is I basically turn the computer volume down to probably about there, keep it really low, and I just keep the volume cranked up a lot. It still gets plenty loud, especially with headphones on, and that kind of cures the loudness equalization because you're forced to crank it up to get a normal volume output. So that's what I do. It works super well, and the built-in loudness equalization is not a problem to me. Now, it's time to talk about the other new thing I added to this computer setup, and that's a whole computer. But where is it? You guys haven't seen it yet. Where could it be? Well, it's hiding right up there. It's the 2014 Mac Mini that Ava so greatly surprised me with in the last package she sent me. I am so grateful for her for sending me this. This computer is awesome. So how it works is I actually have it KVM'd into this whole thing. There's actually two KVM boxes. Well, one's a KVM, the other's just a VGA switcher, because that was the cheapest way to do it. So this box, which cost me about $50 on Amazon, does HDMI and USB switching. And so that takes care of everything except the second monitor. And then this box, which was about $15 from Amazon, does the VGA switching for the second monitor. So we just press this button, press that button, and in a few seconds, we've got a Mac. And this is the first time, well, this is the first modern desktop Macintosh I've ever had. And this is the first time I've ever used a Mac on this setup. And I love it. I actually use this thing a lot. Earlier this month, it was unseasonably warm, well above freezing, into the 40s some days. And the PC uses hundreds of watts of power and uses so much. It generates so much heat. And, you know, I found out back in the summertime that my power bill went down $20 when I put the PC to sleep at night and while I'm away at work, and my air conditioner doesn't have to work 24/7. This thing uses a ton of power, but with the Mac, this uses what? Maybe 100 watts of power, full tilt, perhaps maybe even a lot less than that. You know, when it's not unbearably cold in here and I run the PC to keep the place warm, I just use the Mac and it works great for that. I use this for normal use, you know, if I'm just chilling watching YouTube or whatever. It's fantastic for that. But I'm also really glad to have the Mac Mini on this setup for another reason, and that's because one of the TV shows I edit for the TV station, I can now edit it here at home. I have Adobe Premiere installed on this, because that's what we use up at the TV station. We have a Mac with Adobe Premiere on it, and I don't know if the project file would be compatible with Premiere for Windows. But just for the sake of maintaining the same workflow that I've learned to do at the station, I put Premiere on this, and I edit that show here at home every 3 weeks, and it works great for that. This thing is not that powerful. It's a 1.4 gigahertz i5. I think it's a 3rd gen or something like that. 4 gigs of RAM, and a 500 gig SSD that Ava graciously put in, and I'm really glad she did, because if it weren't for that SSD, I think this thing would be unusably slow. When I get a little rambunctious and have more than a few tabs open in Chrome, this thing gets a little pokey in its performance. And when I'm editing my show in Premiere, if I have too much stuff running, it gets really pokey in performance. This Mac is not a speed demon. I have to be a little, I have to be careful with how much stuff I have running simultaneously. But as long as I am mindful of that, it works wonderfully for editing my show and for just doing my usual computer tasks. It works amazing for that. I love this thing. I am so happy to have a Mac as part of my main computer setup. Really nice. Really cool to have a diverse setup with both a Windows machine and a Mac. And it's great. And also, this Mac is just new enough. This is actually the last version of Mac OS that it'll be supporting. But it is running Monterey, Mac OS 12. Currently on version 12.1 as of this video. There's the specs right there. And yeah, so it's running the latest version of Mac OS. It will not support 13 when it comes out, but that's okay. I think our Mac at the TV station is still running Mojave 10.14. So obviously no big issue with keeping up with the latest Mac OS version. But yeah, I love this thing. I wish I could have had, I wish there was the ability to upgrade the RAM. I would definitely shove 8 or 16 gigs in this thing if I could, but you can't. It's permanently soldered onto the motherboard. So I am really grateful that Ava stuck that SSD in here. It makes it work a lot better. Here's a look at the ports on the back. I've got it wired into Ethernet. It's got an HDMI on it, which is going into my HDMI switch and ultimately into my main monitor. It's got 2 Pikachu ports on it. It's a Pikachu 2.0 on this machine, I believe. And I'm actually using one of them. I've got a Pikachu to VGA adapter, which goes into my VGA switch for the second monitor. And then it's got 4 USB-A ports. I would assume it's USB 3.0 on this. It's got an SD card slot, which is a bit surprising. And then in addition to the headphone jack, it's got a microphone jack. And something I didn't know until I looked this thing up, and I am so excited that it has it, is that apparently the microphone jack on this is optical. It's a combo jack that can take either a standard 3.5mm plug or an optical plug. So you'd put an adapter to get like a Toslink plug on it, and you could plug it into a Toslink optical output on some sort of device. This is going to be really useful to me because it was given to me by the TV station, I have a Panasonic DAT tape deck, digital audio tape, and over 100 DAT tapes with vintage CBC radio content on it. The CBC Radio 1 show Information Morning from St. John, New Brunswick, I received over 100 tapes of over 100 episodes of Information Morning from the late 90s, early 2000s, and I want to do a transfer of those tapes. And of course, a DAT tape deck has an analog output on it, but the best way to transfer those tapes is you can get a bit-for-bit digital transfer using one of the digital outputs on the deck. It has a optical output and it has a SPDIF output. And my computer doesn't have an optical input or a SPDIF input, but this Mac has an optical input. I did transfer one tape using the G5, but I'm definitely going to be using this thing if I can. The G5 is just so unwieldy, noisy, belts out a lot of heat. I'm really excited at the fact that I can hook that DAT deck digitally to this thing and use Audacity or whatever to transfer those tapes. So that's another project that I've got to work on someday. So yeah, this computer has really enhanced the setup here. I can edit one of the TV shows that I take care of for the station. I can do the DAT transfer when I get to that someday. And it's a very cool running, efficient computer for just my normal tasks. And so I got to give a shout out to Ava, because this was one of her computers and she gave it to me. In the box, it was just like a brand new experience unboxing it, as you saw in the video where I unpackaged the stuff she sent me. And yeah, I just love this thing. It's a really great computer to use. And that's it. That's the current state of my computer setup. We looked at the PC, which didn't really change any. Introduction to the Mac Mini that I now get to use on this setup, which I love. And the Optimus SA-155 integrated stereo amplifier, which I use in this setup, which I love. And actually, I forgot to mention, when I have the Mac, when I'm using the Mac instead of the PC, I just turn the input switch, and now it's listening to the Mac. Very convenient. But there you go, everybody. Really hope you enjoyed a look at this, a look at the new parts, and maybe enjoyed a refresher on the old parts. Like I said, I'm going to make a video of putting the new motherboard in the PC when I can finally get around to it. There's a ton of digital cleanup I need to do, sorting out all my documents on the PC and moving everything off the 1 terabyte RAID array beforehand and stuff like that. But someday when I finally get around to it, we'll make a video of that. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you to both Ava and 93 Shadow, who sent me a lot of things to make the computer setup as awesome as it is right now. And a big thanks to my Patreon supporters. Their support helped me afford things like the KVM switches that I had to buy for this setup. So I gotta give a great big shout out to them as well. And to them and everyone else, thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.